Kahamora Bata Yoga Kabira Eka Kale Kota Ashane kuti bo mata anale hasiva Ashane kuti bo mata anale hasiva Gauranga Gunera Nidhi Kotha Gele Pava Se Saba Sangira Sange Je Koilo Bila Say Sangana Aya Kane Naro Tamada Say Sangana Aya Kane Naro Tamada Jayani lo prema dana karuna prachur Hera Prabhu Kota Gira Acharya Thakur Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vaishnava Thakur Jai, Vaishnava Thakur Jaya, Vaishnava Thakur Jaya, Vaishnava Thakur. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we'll do things a little different. I'll present a little PowerPoint of pictures only, and I'll speak something, but try to answer questions mostly. Then I'm hoping Vaninath would say something. I hope think he will. And then anybody else who wanted to add something about their realizations would be welcome to. Does that sound right, Shruti? Okay. So we'll begin. I just assembled some pictures. Some of them may appear self-serving because I'm in it, but I was there. What can I say? I was there. Okay, so we'll begin with there is a perception. There are two perceptions of Prabhupada that are problematic. One, and this is the one Prabhupada really disliked, and he's God. I mean, you know, Prabhupada was a human being who walked among us. Not an ordinary human being, an empowered incarnation, some might say. But he had his likes, his dislikes, his personality. And he was but we have this image of a super grave Prabhupada. And the Prabhupada I knew was actually quite happy and jolly a lot of the time. When people did something stupid, which, remember, his oldest disciple when he left the planet was probably 31, you know, average age was less than the average age in this room now. When Prabhupada came to America, a lot less. So, but he'd be angry for the briefest moment and then just to teach us and continue on. And Prabhupada was a lot funnier than most of us thought. Why didn't we catch it? Anybody guess why we didn't catch it? Why didn't we catch it? Why? Saying they were funny on a higher platform. There's some truth to that, but there's a more fundamental reason. Culture, yeah. Prabhupada's humor was Bengali and generationally very different. Prabhupada was born when Queen Victoria was the Emperor of India, 1896. So there are cultural differences. In fact, when you read the Bhagavatam, the Sanskrit is quite funny a lot of the times. Ridanand Raj always points out to me, they do word games all the time in the Bhagavatam. I mean, like the word for tree in Sanskrit means no go, which is pretty funny. Can't go anywhere. I mean, there's a lot of subtle humor embedded in there because there is, because Krishna describes in the Gita, this is the king of all knowledge, most confidential knowledge. And what's the next line? Secret, and it is joyfully performed. Joyfully performed. So that's why that picture. Prabhupada had a really good sense of humor. When my wife, my fiance then, I got back from India, she had no idea what had happened to me because I went there, an ordinary guy came back kind of mumbling on beats and all kinds of weird things. And she didn't know what happened to me because there was no internet or WhatsApp or any of that. You couldn't call from India then. There were no satellites for phones. And you write letters. So I took her to see Prabhupada on July 4th, 1972 to be precise. And she asked Prabhupada a question. Prabhupada said, "Do you have any questions?" So she asked a question. And then Prabhupada starts answering in his perfect English, but heavily Bengali accented, which to me was nothing. I've lived in India. I mean, it's just ordinary to me. And she's looking at him like a deer in the headlights. And Prabhupada turns to me and says, "Translate." So that's the kind of subtle humor there was. Next slide. Another example of that. And Prabhupada would laugh at the foibles of the material world. At the same time, it expressed a lot of compassion about it. Prabhupada hated seeing that there was suffering. You'd see people suffering. It just not ignored it. It really touched him. We were once walking, I was walking with Prabhupada in this park in Denver, about 6 a.m. Beautiful park. And in back of us is the Denver skyline. Who's been to Denver? You know that park right there? You see the skyline from it. It's quite, I know you lived in Denver. It's quite a nice place. And we're walking at 6 a.m. and there's no one there, hardly, maybe a jogger or two. And everyone's, you can tell the town is still sleeping. And Prabhupada said, and all the skyscrapers are in the background. And Prabhupada goes, they work so hard to build these skyscrapers. And guess what? We didn't work at all to build them in this beautiful park, and we're the only one enjoying it. Perfect time of day, early morning, the mist is there, it's the perfect temperature. It could not have been a nicer moment. April in Denver couldn't have been nicer. He said, we're the only one enjoying it. They work hard, and they work so hard, all they can do is sleep through the good part of the day. The early morning when we could enjoy it. Next slide. And Prabhupada was also, to be very grave, and he was considering the nature of the world, how to spread the movement. I like that particular picture. I don't know what Prabhupada was thinking. I don't know the circumstances. You can tell very deep in thought about something. Does anybody, you all know the story why Prabhupada did his morning walks? You know that story? You know that one? Prabhupada was in New York in the very early days, and he had a few disciples, very few. And Brahmananda and his brother Gargamuni were the early disciples. And then Prabhupada had a heart attack. And it was Memorial Day weekend, I'm thinking 66, something like that. And they couldn't get a doctor. You know, doctors didn't do house calls or anything. Finally, Brahmananda got hold of his family doctor, this old Jewish guy, got him to come visit Prabhupada. And he came to see Prabhupada. And he examined him, gave him some medicine, stepped out of the room, and he's talking to Brahmananda and Gargamuni. And the words he said, they were furious. They wanted to kill the doctor. And Prabhupada said, the doctor said, the problem with your teacher is he prays too much. He needs some exercise. He prays too much. They were furious. Prabhupada overheard him. He says, you know, he's right. I need to exercise more. And that's how the morning walks began. So Prabhupada would take advice from any place. The devotees were so upset. Prabhupada said, yeah, you got a point there. Okay, next slide. No, I wasn't in that picture. Wish I was. This is me 1 month before Prabhupada left. Which one's me? Yeah, I'm the middle nerd. These are the five scientists presenting in April 1970, October 14th, 1977, Life Comes from Life, 1 month before Prabhupada left. And we were the five scientists. This is in the Vrindavan courtyard, the Vrindavan Krishna Balaram temple. Prabhupada was way too sick to come, but he sent a bust of himself, and every night he'd call us in his room. And he said, what are your Sankirtan scores? Now, what's a Sankirtan score for a scientist, for a nerd? The score is this. We'd invited some very prominent scholars debating, does life come from life or does life come from matter? And our Sankirtan scores were what were their arguments, what were our arguments. And when we walked in, do you notice what we're wearing? Suits and ties. And Prabhupada's vision had faded, so he could hardly see by then. And his secretary, Tamal Krishna Goswami, said, Prabhupada, your scientists are here. They're wearing their suits and ties. And Prabhupada said, get them chairs. And our leader, on the lower left, Sri Damodar, he said, Prabhupada, we're disciples, we'll sit on the floor. And Prabhupada said, no, get them chairs. Remember, this is 77. We were still a floor culture. We didn't have a bunch of folks like me whose knees don't do that anymore. So they scrambled 2 chairs somehow. 2 of us sat on 1 chair, 2 of us on another chair. And one of us went like this. Prabhupada couldn't see that. He didn't know what to do. And then Prabhupada wanted to know what were their arguments, what were our arguments. And we told them what they said. And then we told Prabhupada one story, which even though Prabhupada was, by material calculation, in intense pain and basically skin and bones, and I'll tell you something about that in a moment, Prabhupada was still very jolly. I really like this story. One Indian man who had some, anybody hear the Ig Nobel Prize? Ig Nobel Prize? There's a Nobel Prize, you all know. The Ig Nobel is for something stupid. And so some people award that. This guy was going for the Ig Nobel. He thought the Nobel, but it was the Ig Nobel. Some idea how life comes from matter. It was a really silly idea, but he thought he was going to get the Nobel Prize. We gave his talk and we gave questions and countered his arguments. And one lady's in the audience raising her hand, and he wouldn't call on her. This could only happen in India. What happened next? Finally, he calls on her because she's the only one left. And she doesn't face him. She faces the audience and said, that's my husband speaking. All this atheist nonsense. But at night, he offers Artik too. And Prabhupada appreciated that because that's Indian culture. No matter how atheist you are, you still worship. And that was the culture there. So next slide. Okay, this is a morning walk in New Talavan in 1976, I think. Yeah. And on the right, there's me with my son on my shoulders. And that's Hari Kesh on the left and other dignitaries. And we're at New Talavan. Prabhupada, there's a famous picture of him cooking. And I actually got a little taste of it. I can still taste it, this eggplant dish, amazing. Prabhupada just went in the kitchen and cooked. And then Prabhupada gave an extraordinary class at New Talavan. And he said something he didn't say too often. And he said, if you follow the principles and chant, you will go back to Godhead this life. And he said it in such a forceful, dramatic way. so forceful, so dramatic. And then Prabhupada said, this is not coming from me. Krishna is guaranteeing it. And he really inspired us. Oh, there's one story I left out. When I got to Vrindavan, fortunately, I was on a plane with another GBC man and was able to get right in to see Prabhupada when we got there. And we got there, the Prabhupada we knew was the one you see on the Murti, vibrant, morning walks, sometimes sick, but, when we got there, Prabhupada was emaciated. He had diabetic kidney failure, renal failure. He could hardly eat for months, skin and bones. We saw him. We were shocked. I mean, the look, you could see the look on her face. Oh my God. And then Prabhupada says to the GBC man with the Atreya Rishi, he says, I've been telling you life after life that I'm not this body. Now I'm living in my bones. My body's gone. Will you finally get it? And so Prabhupada is using that in the condition of his body to make one of his most important preaching points, that you're not this body. So, yeah, we can go on to the next one. Oh, that's just proving that there is a changing body exhibit. That was me around that. I just wanted to prove that point. We do change our bodies, even though I'm the same person as we say. Next one. Now, this is one of my favorite pictures of Prabhupada because there's Prabhupada smiling and there's the roses blocking the face of his driver. So nobody quite knows who the driver is. Any guesses who the driver is? No, it's me. So that way, I like that picture because I'm not prominent, but I think, yeah, I was there. And I got to drive Prabhupada several times in New York. In the New York temple, they would buy old police cars that were no longer in service and had been removed of all police symbols because they were dirt cheap, then register in Virginia, which didn't require insurance. We had no money then. And it just wasn't, my uncle had a Lincoln, so I borrowed it so I would drive Prabhupada. And we're driving 1 mile an hour on the Long Island Expressway on the way back from Kennedy Airport. 1 mile an hour, it's typical bumper to bumper traffic. And I turned to Prabhupada and said, would you like to wear your seatbelt? And he looks at me, he goes, what's wrong with you? Is the expression on his face, we're going 1 mile an hour. So then I said, I'll keep quiet after that. Next slide. Oh, this is, this was just sent to me by Jayapataka Swami. Who here has read Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers? Okay. Who has not heard of the book? Oh, okay. It's a conversation I had with Prabhupada. I was a high school teacher. And they just put up a display about it. Again, I'm not, for 40 years, I wouldn't even speak on the book because I was afraid it would be about me, not about Prabhupada. Then I realized, boy, that's really dumb. It's all about Prabhupada anyway. So that's where the book took place. There was nothing. Who's been to Mayapur? You've seen the Bhajan Kutir? That was all that was there. There was nothing there, literally nothing. A tent for men, a tent for women, and a hut for Prabhupada. There were 2 buildings. One was his Bhajan Kutir, and the other was his outhouse, a straw building behind it, until someone had the brilliant idea to put a stick of incense in the straw building. Then there was 1 building. Glad Prabhupada wasn't in it when that happened. I think that's the last slide. Is there another one or not? I don't remember. That's it. Okay, we can turn that off. So I just want to give a little, the interactions I had with Prabhupada. There was some, I'll tell one very intimate, some of you have heard this, but it's so intimate and so important story about Prabhupada. Then I'll answer questions, and then maybe Vandinath can speak. Is that my own schedule? Okay. So, there's a saying that the face is the mirror of the mind. You've heard that saying? You look at someone's face. If you see someone, they're very envious. You can see it right away in their face. Well, I was watching faces during the kirtan today. I was just glancing at some faces and you can see how people were so happy relating to Prabhupada, and the dancing and the smiling. You can see it. The face is a mirror of the mind. So, I had been a devotee chanting, following everything for 2 years, and I wasn't initiated yet. That was weird. Everyone got initiated in 6 months in those days. And I had also spent 3 days one-on-one speaking to Prabhupada. I mean, how was it I wasn't initiated? And there was a reason. I was just waiting. I knew my wife was, I was married by then, very pious. And but waited until she was ready, because she was telling me to get initiated, but it would be more encouraging if I waited. So some devotees were very nice to me. I was also a weirdo. I was in graduate school. And then people dropped out to join the movement, because almost everyone came from hippie stock, but I had failed at hippiedom. I had showered every day. And that they took away my hippie membership card for that. That was unacceptable. I did have long hair at one point. Now I long for some hair, but that's a whole other matter. But I never quite made the hippiedom so, and some devotees were preaching to me in a very kind, compassionate, wonderful way. What the hell is wrong with you? And leave that wife who's not ready to surrender. Move in the temple. What's wrong with you? And not all. Some, like Gopal, the late Gopal Krishna Maharaj was Rasa, was really nice to me, and others really very kind and good relations. But several were like that, kind of fanatical. And it hit me. And all of a sudden, I got quite depressed, thinking, what's wrong with me? Does that happen to any of you? I mean, what's wrong with you? Why can't I be fully surrendered? Why can't I be like others, just surrendered and do, what's wrong with me? I mean, that happens to a lot of us, happened to me. And it got me so heavy that even though I could drive Prabhupada, other things, this time I didn't want Prabhupada to see my face. I was thinking, he shouldn't see my face. That's not a good idea. So I stood in the hallway, not even the temple room. And then when Prabhupada was about to round the corner, walking down the hallway to the temple room, I stood in a corner. And before he rounded the corner, you could see his sannyasis coming first with their dandas. I offered obeisances, said the prayers in the slowest way I could, like this, Nama, Om, like that, very slow. And then by the time I'd finished, Prabhupada would be on the Vyasasana, I'd just sit in the doorway of the temple. Unbeknownst to me, even though I was upside down, Prabhupada recognized me. I didn't expect, and he saw me. I didn't know that. I was way in the corner. And he stopped 1 inch from me. Didn't know that either. And I heard all the footsteps stop. Finished the prayer, stood up, and 1 inch from me, there's Prabhupada. And he turns to me and says, this is something a little unusual, but this is the Prabhupada's being, the face is the mirror of the mind. He understood there was some sincerity deep down in spite of whatever difficulties I may have. And he said to me, so glad to see you, and gave me a large hug, which is not the usual way. Then I knew, without Prabhupada saying one word, I was on the right path, I was doing the right thing, and I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, which is what I was doing. And so at that moment, all my anxiety and all my depression disappeared. And Prabhupada said just a few words to me, glad to see you, and an unusually big hug. It was so unusual that later on one devotee came up to me and said, you see what Prabhupada did? I said, did he really do that? I was thinking, I was imagining. It was so strange. Then I was in New Orleans and I walked in the back of the temple room. I just sat down. That was the picture from New Taliban that's near New Orleans, that same time frame. And Brahmananda's sitting next to Prabhupada, and he motions me, come forward, come forward. So I was thinking I must be blocking the doorway, but there's no one behind me, so I moved forward a few feet. And he goes, like this, come forward. So I moved forward a few more feet, and he stands up, he goes, come here. I said, Prabhupada wants you to sit next to him on the floor. So I went up, and what a privilege. Then finally, I'm getting initiated in New York. It's New York Rath Yatra, 1976. And Prabhupada was in the temple, but he wasn't at the initiation. He wasn't feeling well that day. But the next day, he came to Guru Puja, and he's giving out cookies. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm his disciple now. He hugged me, called me to sit next to him, talked to me. I'm pretty special, aren't I? Remember what I said, the face is a mirror of the mind. So I had all that pride. And I walk up to get the cookie. I'll never forget the look. And Prabhupada handed me a cookie and looked at me like I was a clear piece of glass and he didn't see me, looked right through me. And that look like I wasn't there. And then, boy, did my pride go down the drain in a moment. Prabhupada was very subtle that way. A little smile, a little frown, a look. But everyone who was with Prabhupada got it because he could be very expressive without saying a lot. And so I wanted to kind of share there's many more things I could share, but time is not always our friend for these things. So I wanted to at least give some insight into what it was like being with Prabhupada. I thought to give some inspiration. Are there any questions or comments? Yes. John. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I began and then got interrupted. Two sides that are incorrect. One side is to overstate Prabhupada, and the other side is to understate Prabhupada. And there are people who do that, who understate. There was one of his disciples left him and joined up with this godbrother of Prabhupada instead, because he didn't get along with his own godbrother, so he joined up with one of Prabhupada's godbrothers, and he published his picture, and you have Bhakti Siddhanta there, the wonderful Bhakti Siddhanta, and underneath it, you have Prabhupada and this godbrother and that godbrother, as if they're all on the same platform, which is super silly. It wasn't. Prabhupada was the one who did what Bhakti Siddhanta said to do. So, so we have that issue. So you can overstate Prabhupada or you can understate Prabhupada. And in this case, we have to follow the Buddhist instructions given in the Bhagavad Gita. Can anybody tell me one of the Buddhist type instructions given in the Bhagavad Gita? The Buddha was famous for the middle way. He said, don't eat too much, don't sleep too much. Yes, so we take the middle way. That's one of the Buddhist instructions. There's a sapling of a tree in Bodh Gaya that they claim is the same tree that the Buddha sat under when he got enlightened. I sat under it. Nothing happened. Okay. So, but I tried. Any questions I can answer, and maybe Vaninath can share with us too, and others. Any questions about anything Prabhupada? Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you for sharing these amazing stories.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what it will take moving forward so that we can stay close to Prabhupada's mood, his desires, because even during his life, devotees misunderstood him.
Yes.
And how can, moving forward, we stay close to his desire?
So how can we, moving forward, stay close? That's probably one of the most important questions. And do what he said in New Orleans, just follow. If Prabhupada asks for a glass of water, you don't give him a glass of milk. Just do what he said. Just do what he said. Some wonder, these are the two extremes that I was talking about. There's one extreme that Prabhupada was the only guru ever, some deviant philosophy that way. It's, shastrically, it's about as silly as you can get. And Prabhupada hundreds of times told his disciples, I want you to all have disciples. But Rupa Goswami makes a big distinction. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, I think chapter 5, Rupa Goswami says that one should follow the greatest, one should take a spiritual master and follow the great acharyas. So there's a distinction between the great acharyas and the spiritual master. So the way the devotees move on is they're loyal to their spiritual master. They try to take instructions, but they also understand that Prabhupada's the founder acharya. So they make that proper distinction in the proper way. And that way, see, when you join the ISKCON, it's like Sears Roebuck, which hardly exists anymore. It used to be a famous department store. They used to have a brilliant consumer saying, and it worked well for them: satisfaction guaranteed, or double your money back. They used to advertise that until some people took advantage of it. Anyway, they used to advertise like that. So when you join ISKCON, you get a guru with a warranty. You get a warranty. And Prabhupada's institution, ISKCON, run by the GBC, is the warranty. So if something goes wrong, you have a warranty. That's Prabhupada. He's the, he controls the warranty. But we still have our gurus. So that's how we do it. We go on that way. And, during the month of Kartik, it's always a reminder of the power of little things. What do I mean by that? The power of little things. Satchidananda Swami puts this most brilliantly. He says, during the month of Kartik, you don't have to take a great vow. I will not eat for this month, and I will not sleep for this month. That usually lasts about 10 minutes. And the real thing is, during the month of Kartik, you just add something. Okay, I'm going to do Damodar every day. I'm going to chant one round that's so special. That one round is like I meant it. I don't care what it takes. And it's just something. Add a little something. Just do it, and then it works. Vaisheshika puts it this way: for devotees who want to do Sankirtan but don't want to do Sankirtan. I can't go beg money or distribute books or walk up to people that I want to do, but I can't. I want, I can't, I want, I can't. So what he says to do is brilliant. He says, get in the Sankirtan van, go out to the spot, and don't get out of the van. Just sit there and read a book. Just by that act of going out there and taking that little effort, soon you're going to be out there distributing books. It's going to work. Just little things. And that's a real secret of Krishna consciousness. And that's what Prabhupada did. I'll tell another story. Maybe I don't want to take up too much time, but when I was in Mayapur at the first Gaur Purnima festival, there were 60, 70 devotees. Now, can somebody guess how many guests came to the very first Mayapur festival, English-speaking guests? One. That was me. I had heard they were doing food relief for Bangladesh refugees. There had just been a war with Pakistan, and I went up there to help do food relief. I didn't know anything about anything. And so I went there, and I didn't know Prabhupada was there. I didn't know anything. And every devotee was quite enthusiastic to preach, and there was one person to preach to. So you know how you go into stores and they have a machine, you get a number for your turn? I swear they must have one of those machines there. So people were giving me all kinds of advice of what's most important. Most of that quite unsolicited advice, I might add. And so afterwards, I was in Calcutta again and I saw Prabhupada. And I said, what's really most important? Somebody would say getting up early, reading, dancing, tulsi, chanting, eating prasadam. Quite a few were telling me the most important thing is eating prasadam. So anyway, that was their own thing. They all ended up quite fat, those who said that. So anyway, what was the most important thing? So I asked Prabhupada, and he told me the most important thing. The one thing that will assure your advancement. And psychological studies prove this. I can go into detail, but there won't be time now. That is good association. Good association does not mean someone who necessarily dresses a particular way or anything. It means people, according to the Upadeshamrita, you can reveal your heart to with confidence, and they can reveal their heart to you, people you trust. Having good association is the number one thing. And I always made that my mantra, good association. And I have friends in Krishna consciousness who really are the deepest friends one could have. And that's what keeps me surviving for a half a century. And that was a key lesson from Prabhupada. Hope I answered the questions. Is there any other question? Then Vandinath can speak. Okay. Vandinath, you want to come up here? You want a microphone there? What would you like? Vandinath, who most of you know, but some don't, has been one of the more successful temple presidents, President Tallahassee, President of Orlando, New Raman Reti, when we were struggling in the 80s with 5, 6 devotees. He was president, keeping it going, kept Krishna lunch going for years. So Vandinath is always our very quiet dancing hero. Sorry about that, Vani, but I had to say it. It's true. Go on.
So I was thinking when you were the slide New Taliban, because I've studied that some of those conversations that took place there in the because they're recorded in the book speaking about
Varnashram. Yeah, the Varnashram conversations.
Yes,
yes,
Varnashram conversations.
Yeah.
So, and this year, 2024, is the 50th anniversary of Prabhupada's instructions in regards to that. So
that was 74. He was there.
I think that's right. Correct.
No, that had to be later. It had to be 75.
Okay.
Okay, but go on.
But in any case,
yeah,
because then there was the follow up with the Varnashram colleges, which
yes,
is Prabhupada. So that certainly is 50 years.
Yes,
check the dates, etc. So one thing a question that has come up, and it's just something to throw out. And I'll say it in a, well, the question was in a group, did Srila Prabhupada change his mind? And some persons had difficulty with looking at the possibility of that. But in the work that I'm been focused on with Varnashram, the looking at information in a chronological order gives me the opportunity to look at Prabhupada's development of ideas. And even in terms of spreading Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada was very dynamic, and he responded to new information, and he also responded to how we were able or not able to take ideas and execute them. And so that was just one thing that when you were going through the slides and seeing the photo from New Taliban, it prompted me to think of that. Also, in Hare Krishna Dasi included one statement from the fourth canto in the volume as well, where it mentions two instructions from Srila Prabhupada in the purport that are important, I think, for on the disappearance day. One is that the first, after taking initiation, then the duty of the disciple becomes the order of the spiritual master, executing that and not being disturbed by anything else. This is something that I've been thinking about for myself, because in what I'm trying to do, I often get very disturbed. And so I've had to look at that. And that was one thing. And then the other, which is very interesting, also after initiation, that the disciple doesn't concern himself with going back home, back to Godhead. He actually concerns himself with executing the order of the spiritual master. So it touches on the question that was asked about keeping everything in proper perspective, that was asked by Brihat. So just those two comments based on the things that you presented there and the photos that you nicely described.
Funny enough, G. Anybody else would like to say something about their relationship with Prabhupada and their inspiration, or somebody have another question? Yes. Either one of you, go on. You want to speak?
You already kind of answered this, though. I want to see if it arises any other thoughts, but how can we approach Prabhupada to help us authentically approach Krishna? In very broad, but how can we approach Prabhupada to help us authentically approach Krishna?
Oh, that's easy. Pray. I do it every day. Every morning, first thing I get up, or for obeisance is, I have actually a picture of Prabhupada that was on the Vyasasan when I got initiated, because he wasn't well that day. So I actually somehow got that picture. So every morning when I get up, I go turn on the light on the picture. It's a big picture, I mean, like these on the wall here. And I do my prayers. And that's the way I have to start every day. Because myself, what can I do? We are built on mercy. So I pray for it. What can I do? How, and I have specific, there's specific way I pray that I've been helped by my mentors to figure out. I'm not praying, oh, my dear Lord Krishna, may our investment in the stock market go up today. Because I can't pray that. For one, I don't have anything in the stock market. But two, that'd be stupid. But praying that, I'll reveal it. I did private prayers. I'll say this morning, I was saying, okay, Prabhupada, I really want to connect with the holy name today. It's your disappearance day. And just help me do that. I want to connect with Krishna. And then we pray to Krishna. Krishna, can you help me connect with Prabhupada? It's both. So the prayer is what I think. Others may have better answers. Maybe Shruti has something to add to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about how just studying Prabhupada's life helps us build our strong relationship with Prabhupada, because there's the Prabhupada founder acharyas. You talked about it. It's this charismatic leader, and he founded this movement. But then there's Prabhupada the person as well. And so when we read the Lilamrita or we read any memories of his disciples, you see that personal side of Prabhupada, and that is so endearing. And yeah, for me, I remember when I was coming to Krishna House initially, I used to come here I would volunteer at Krishna lunch, and I'd come here for lunch at 2 p.m. And I would come and just hear the Lilamrita. And when I heard about Prabhupada's life, I was just blown away. And I thought, I might not believe in this philosophy. But if Prabhupada says something, I'll take it at face value. And I might still think about it, analyze it, argue about it, whatever. But if he says it, I'll take it. And that conviction came from just hearing about what kind of a person Prabhupada was. So I feel like that is just so crucial to build relationship with Prabhupada. Is learning more about him, how he, any acharya for that matter, the more we learn about how they acted, how they behaved, and so especially Prabhupada, how he led his life from childhood to till the end. It just really endears him to us, and our faith in him and the philosophy grows a lot. Gives a big foundation for our spiritual life. Yeah. So come what may, it's gone through so many phases. 80s, 90s were tumultuous, but devotees are such strong faith. Prabhupada, they stuck it out. So if we have faith in Prabhupada, we read his books. If we have faith, in his books and his instructions, his life and example, then come what may, faith doesn't get as shaken up.
Yeah. When Prabhupada was writing the 5th canto, which talks about Vedic cosmology, many devotees became bewildered. The 5th canto is, to put it mildly, far out. And if you look at the 5th canto, anybody know what a subliminal perception is? Like, for example, liquor companies, when they show ice cubes, if you take a magnifying glass, you'll see like death symbols and sex symbols, because it's subtle, but it makes you want to go into mode of ignorance. When I was a kid, in the movies, they would flash right before intermission where people would buy popcorn. They'd flash on the screen, eat popcorn. And it would be for such a short time, you would never be able to perceive it. But when the intermission came, you had to have popcorn. So similarly, on the cover of the 5th canto, and the stars on the bottom, subtly, you can see it, is the word death. See, I can show it to you, anybody wants. The artist did that. So the 5th canto is a heavy canto. The whole purpose of the 5th canto is to take us to Krishna. And Sukadeva Goswami begins in the 5th canto that some of this is mysterious, it's beyond us. It's to humble us, to give us a glimpse of the universe like the demigods would see, just to say, hey, you don't understand it all, it's beyond you. And when Prabhupada did the 5th canto, he was asked, can you explain all these details? He said, that's not my specialty. And he actually translated it much faster than the other cantos, because it's not my area. So then he assigned it to the Bhaktivedanta Institute. But you guys figured out, and our brilliant late Sadhaputta went in and showed it has the most amazing science in there that you can actually tell how far apart the planets are, which wasn't known to around 1860. They weren't able to do the triangulation, get that until they had telescopes, to track the transit of Venus over the sun, things like that. It was a much later time. So Prabhupada would, so we have this image that everything that Prabhupada said is perfect. There's a problem with that, because if so, everything that Prabhupada said was dictated by Krishna. Prabhupada said something like that. Krishna's telling me what to say. That's true. We all have that experience of Krishna in our heart guiding us. But if that's true, then why did Prabhupada need an English editor? Krishna's grammar wasn't that good. So there's a balance here. There's a real balance. So Prabhupada left some things for us and some things he did. It doesn't in any way, when I'm saying take away from Prabhupada. In fact, it's far the opposite. It makes us appreciate Prabhupada more as a person, and who had his own likes and dislikes in his own ways, and also completely transcendental. And that's the aspiration of where we come, because we don't want to become impersonalists, that we're not a person. We just want to give up our false identity, but not give up our identity. So what I recommend to everyone, especially those who are new to Krishna conscious, one of the most important things you can do when you're new is, and today's a good day to start this, read a biography of Prabhupada. You really get to appreciate him. There's the Lilamrita, which is a multi-volume, kind of, we call it a hagiography. And it's very good. I mean, I really enjoyed it. One of my favorites is the one by Yogeshwar. Yogeshwar's biography. Can't remember the name of it now. Swami in a Strange Land, thank you. Because it's a very personal aspect of how he met Prabhupada and the impression he has. So today is a good day for any of you who haven't, and for those of you who have, read a biography of Prabhupada. Shamala, please. Microphone. Yeah.
A quick comment. So you were mentioning about some devotees or people who think that Prabhupada is the only acharya and there shouldn't be anyone after him. And there are people who believe that. And
there are people who think the earth is flat.
Yeah. So I was thinking
I know them.
The testament to a great acharya is that they can actually transform the hearts of others so that those people can become gurus and teachers. And if that wasn't the case, it would be like saying that Prabhupada had a shortcoming in that way. So when we do encounter this, and if someone's trying to convince you, because it's all around us, then we can say share that, like, well, Prabhupada was so advanced that he was actually able to make others who could become teachers also. Yeah, I mean, if Prabhupada couldn't empower anyone to initiate, what was he doing? He could, because he was that powerful. Those who say he couldn't really understate him. Like I said, the two dangers, understate or overstate. Okay, any other final comments or questions? Yes, please.
Hi, Krishna. Prabhu, thank you.
What's your name?
My name's Ratna Gopi.
Ratna Gopi, thank you.
And what's your name, Prabhu?
Brahma Tirtha.
Brahma Tirtha. Hi, Krishna. Good to meet you. So I had two quick comments based on the discussion. One was what really helped me solidify part of the answer to Jackson's question as far as like how does Prabhupada kind of lead us to Krishna? And my understanding is one of the references from the Sastras is that we seek to follow the spiritual master's instructions. And Prabhupada is our Siksha Guru, one of our spiritual masters. And through that, we can attain the mercy of Nityananda. And Nityananda helps us approach Lord Chaitanya, who helps us approach Radha Krishna. So it's a wonderful opportunity we have to be in front of Gaura-Nitai deities. And one story that helped me, because it did bother me a lot at first, what you were talking about, like Prabhupada's supposed imperfections that you can see from the material, because the mind and the ego can be so triggered by that. But I realized it's actually something that makes Prabhupada so beautiful is he didn't try to pretend to be something other than, something he's not. And one pastime of Krishna helped me like really accept this and start to love that, funny imperfections in the material sphere is the pastime where Krishna is going to milk a cow and he milks a goat's neck because he's distracted by something. So that helped me kind of realize and understand, it's very personal for these things to happen and very lovely. So yeah, Hare Krishna.
Very, very deep and important realization. And to say, Prabhupada's, he had his own ways, own likes, but just because Prabhupada, for example, one devotee came back from India. I remember, I won't mention his name, but came back in 1973 from India. And he was a New Yorker, born in New York, American in every regard. And he came back with a heavy Bengali accent after 2 months in India, because that's how Prabhupada spoke. That's called imitating, not following. So just because Prabhupada had a Bengali accent, we should all have Bengali accents. I mean, that was, we're all immature and kids there, and, we didn't know what we were doing. And so these things happen. So I'm not trying to point fingers and just pointing fingers at all of us. What can we do? And poor Prabhupada, here he was in his 70s and a bunch of us in his 20s. I mean, God, did he have tolerance? A lot of it. but he had a mission, and he did that. And Prabhupada was perfect at his mission in every regard. Yet, he was also a person with his own likes and dislikes, and we have to give that context. I mean, my affection to Prabhupada has never changed in half a century. Well, it has changed. It increased. It has changed. I can say that. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I please accept my humble obeisance on this most auspicious day. Thank you so much for sharing your personal experiences with Srila Prabhupada. And I just really love that picture of you driving him. It's very artistic, but also it's very special. And yeah, I remember in 2017 at the Ratha Yatra in St. Augustine, I had drove some devotees there, and there was a couple of us left, and we got taxied by a Prabhupada disciple and his wife in this 70s Mercedes Benz from the park to where we had parked at, and we were riding in the back, and he was like, yeah, I got initiated by Srila Prabhupada through a letter, and he was kind of going through that stuff, and he was like, yeah, but this is the car, he rode in, and we were sitting in the back seat, almost like this is, it's very special. It's like, I feel like everything that he touches turns to gold. Like he really did have the Midas touch. And we can see that with Gainesville, like we touched down on the plaza and he transformed this entire part of Florida. So also that he gave you a hug, very special too.
It was, just some good fortune. Okay, any last comments or questions? Not, we'll stop here and not have breakfast. Okay, if anybody would like a gift for anybody would like a copy of Perfect Questions, I have a few. If you haven't, especially somebody who hasn't read it, the title is always a little problematic for me because I am perfect. But I'll say how the title came about. After the conversation, I didn't even know the conversation was being recorded. His secretary, they were very short of cassette tapes. So the first conversation, unfortunately, was not recorded. So the conversation begins at an abrupt point because the first session wasn't recorded. The secretary said, this is worth using our rare cassette tapes, and had hit the cassette recorder, old cassette recorders, and recorded. And when it was over, Shamasundar, the secretary, turned to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, those are perfect answers you gave. And Prabhupada said, yes, we'll make a book. And he named the book. And then he wrote me a letter saying that's how it happened. If there was any reason the questions are perfect, it's because I accidentally hit upon a formula. It's a good formula for all of you to know. In the Gita, Krishna says what? Approach a spiritual master, and what's the next step? And next? And next? Exactly. So, when I met Prabhupada, my first thought was, okay, I knew the devotees, I knew something. I'd read Gita not Prabhupada's Gita wasn't even out. I'd read Gita in college several times. And I went, the reason I was in India, when I joined the Peace Corps, I asked for India, which I didn't know was the Booby Prize, so they gave it to me. But I really wanted to go to India. So I'm there, and because I wanted to understand the Gita deeper. So I said, I don't know if Prabhupada is really what his disciples say. I don't know, but why should I challenge him? Let me just learn from him and I can digest it later. So I didn't go to challenge him. Step one, inquire submissively. Accidentally, I hit the formula. Step two, render service. We were feeding thousands of refugees every day. So when I wasn't with Prabhupada, I was feeding refugees. Render service. Hey, the Gita actually works. The formula works. Inquire submissively, render service, and you get knowledge. Bingo. So that's what happened. Okay, so I give the backstory. Very good. Thank you very much. Read something about Prabhupada today. Have a nice day. If you are just have your ear pods in and are oblivious to the rest of the world, you can be listening at Nuam and Reti, where a lot of probably the largest collection of Prabhupada disciples in the world, and they're speaking right now about their remembrances of Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.